Hi, welcome to another episode of the Inner Typewriter. I'm your host, Scott Calhoun, and this is the show about, it has typewriters, coffee, and conversations about how to make your writing better. With me today is Kelly McClymer.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. She is the author of the Evertwixt series, Once Upon a Wedding series, and Secret Shopper Moms series. So we're really honored to have you. You're a very prolific writer. And today's episode, we're talking about getting published, which is something that we should probably look into a little bit if we're writers. And you've been there, you've done it. So the first question is how did your career in writing begin?
I wrote and submitted, and I really think a lot of writers who are not yet published recognize that cycle. I had excellent advice. I belonged to a critique group of published writers. I knew all the good advice, but when I got a rejection, it stopped me cold.
Yeah.
You know, I was busy. I had a job, I had a child, I had a husband. I was going to school still. I like to keep busy, and I think I was crazy back then. Mm-hmm. But I really spent years in that rejection cycle thinking it was me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when I got to the romance, I had my romance group, and they were like, this is a good novel, you should try it. So I started to submit to agents, query letters, which is a whole nother writing process and very interesting. You have to say good things about yourself, but not too good things. You have to get to the core of the book and you know, this is a 400-page book, and you have to describe it in 2 paragraphs. But I had very good instructors. So I did finally learn, okay, you can't put in all the cool parts. You just put in the core of the story. That's what you're doing. And I got an agent, and I was really excited. And everybody was really excited for me. But at the time, I didn't know that didn't mean anything.
It seems like the holy grail when you get it, but the journey isn't over. So
the problem with getting an agent is when they first sign you, they're very excited because they think they can sell the book. And then if they get, you know, a few rejections from the editors they know, then they start thinking, well, there must be something wrong with the book. So, you know, that's the message that you get. And then you're stuck with, well, but it's my book, I wrote it. So what do? Well, you get another agent. You go to conferences, you talk to editors, you listen to what they want. And it's like, I think I'm giving you that. You know, it really is. It feels like you're working with like a veil over your head. You're trying hard to see where your book is going to fit, but it's just not clear. Mm-hmm. And I happened to meet another agent. She came to speak to a writers group that I was in, and I sent her, you know, I took my courage in my hands, and I verbally queried her because she was there. Pitch, yeah. Exactly, that is the correct word. Yeah. And I did not do it well, but you know, she was a generous sort, and she was interested. So she read my book, and she loved it, and she was like, "Oh, I can sell this," and I'm like, "Good, because I can't."
And you had tried the other agent.
The other agent. So we had parted ways. On my birthday, she sent me a note saying, "I can't sell this book. Write another one and send another one to me." I don't think so. Okay. I hadn't told her. It was just ironic.
So this second agent, let's pick it up from there. Then what happened?
So she tried, and she sent, you know, I knew her really well. We became friends, and so I knew where she was sending it. I was like so excited. I'm going to be at this house. I love this editor. I've met her. No. And then, so I had become friends with this editor, and I was in this writing group. So we go to the meeting, and everybody there is smiling at me, and I'm like, what is going on? And my agent came in with balloons and said, guess what? I not only sold this book, I sold a series for you. Can you write 3 more books at the time in 6 months. Now, it had only taken me 5 years to write this one book, so sure, why not?
3 more books in 6 months?
Yes.
Whoa.
So it was, again, deadlines are my friend. And I'm not good at setting them myself, and I'm trying to learn that. But so I went from thinking I'm going to have to start a whole new book. Well, I had started a whole new book because that book was finished and was being, shopped out. So I was following the advice to write the next book. But I wasn't writing a book in that series because the advice was don't sell anything as a series, just let each book stand on its own. And so I was writing something completely different. I had not expected that because we'd gotten turned down from so many places. This was almost our last shot at getting someone interested in it. And I ended up writing 7 books in that series.
7 books? But it must have taken longer than half a year.
Well, to write 7 books, it took me about 2 years. I do have, when personal issues, like my father was dying toward the end of it, it was like, that really affects my writing. And that's just the way it is. I used to try and fight it and say, well, it doesn't matter, but it does. To me, it does.
What were some of the surprises that you had, either good surprises or bad surprises in that process? So
I had so many. I expected that I would get a letter from my editor telling me, I knew that I would have edits. That's a normal thing. Your editor edits you. And I thought, okay, so she's going to tell me, what she's looking for and how I'm supposed to do things. It was set in the Regency era and of England. It's at the time when King George was going mad and his son was the regent. They asked me to change it to the Victorian times because they had too many Regency books. Now, I happen to be a history fan of both of these eras, so I said, no problem. Until I started to edit it, and I thought, that was a silly thing for me to say. So it was very easy to change a Regency skirt to a Victorian skirt because I just called it a skirt.
So that was the change. They wanted you to change from the Regency era to the Victorian era.
Right. So I fudged. I went right to I started right when Queen Victoria took the throne. And it was like, all right, I can do that. That's not too bad. And there still was a lot of Regency flair there. But again, sometimes you just have to say yes. If I had said no, what would have happened? Right. I don't know. And I wouldn't have learned a lot about my writing because I actually thought that's not a good thing, that I can actually go through and edit this entire book and I'm not changing any descriptions. So I ended up buying a big compendium of English costumes through the ages and adding in a few more details. Because I like that as a reader, but that's, as a writer, I'm into the people, and I'm into, okay, what's this person thinking versus what they're doing, and all of these, interpersonal things.
Not so much the attire.
No, totally do not understand. She's dressed, or not, whichever. That's about my extent.
Was there any fun surprises along the way? Good surprises?
It's really exciting to see your book on the shelf in the bookstore. There is no, or to hold it, to get it in the mail and hold it, because it's a manuscript. It goes through, your typewriter. At the time, I think I was working on a Commodore 64, so I did not use the Royal. I only used the Royal for drafts because otherwise I would have, pulled my hair out.
Just the fact that you wrote on a typewriter you're rating high in my book right now.
It was, writing to me is a very hand-centered experience. And so, so I have a mechanical keyboard and it gives me that typewriter feel, but I don't have to back up or use any.
There's no delete key.
I don't have to be accurate. I can go backwards. But the whole process was interesting, but I felt like I never quite understood what I was doing. So my editor would say, all right, these are the changes I want you to make, and I would make them and send them in, and then I would get back a manuscript. They call them page proofs. And at that point, you're not supposed to make a lot of changes, but they look like the book. So you have like the facing pages, but they're on a flat page and they have the little lines there. And this is what the printer looks at. These are always on like a really tight deadline. No matter how long it takes them to get back to you, you are going to have to get back to them really quick. I think the biggest thing I would say, and I did this, and I think it was a mistake, is I was always in awe and fear of my editor, and I was afraid to ask questions. So I just was waiting for my editor to impart wisdom to me. And it really is a collaborative process. You need to ask questions. If you don't understand something, you need to clarify it. And there's always this feeling that you're wasting the editor's time. And all of my editors were always very, very busy, because that is the reality, even back then. And nowadays, I think it's more. They have a lot of clients. They're juggling a lot of work on their plate. I mean, the reading, that's one of the surprising things I learned about editors, is they don't actually do the reading in the office. They do the reading, on the train, at home, on the weekend.
On the treadmill.
Exactly. And it's that they must love the job, right? They didn't get into it if they didn't love the job. So treat your editor right, but don't be like, I can't ask this question. It will make the editor totally think I'm stupid and tell me, no, we can't publish your book because we didn't realize you were so lame.
That you were going to ask this question.
And my editors were all, and I learned from them. I mean, and they were all really nice people. So I know they have reputations, but I think it's just because they don't want you to ask silly questions. Like, okay, how much money are you going to get from my book? How much money am I going to ultimately make? They can't answer that question for you, no matter how many times you ask it or how many ways. They can only answer a question of like, well, you ask me to do this, but if I do that, it's going to change that. Do you really want me to do this? That is a good question. The editor appreciates getting that before you do it the wrong way, and they have to fix it.
Saving time. Yeah. Great. Well, I'm hearing that. I'm hearing, don't be in awe of your editor. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Learn what are the good questions to ask, but don't be afraid about it. And the other thing I'm taking away from this is be courageous when you're submitting your work, right? That's something that I heard from you and that you would still recommend to writers? To this day, it's a lot for me to submit my work. It really is, because it hurts when people don't like it. And I've learned, it makes no sense to expect everybody to like your work. It really makes no sense. You don't like everything that you read. I like a lot of things, but I don't like everything. There are some things I don't like. So I have gotten a harder skin about that, but you're always better off submitting it when you think it's finished. If it's not, you'll find out and you'll get another chance to fix it. But if it is, it might hit that editor's desk at exactly the right moment. And then you'll be on to the next thing. Wow, great. Well, thank you so much for sharing that wisdom and experience with us. While we were talking, we had the Royal Quiet Deluxe typewriter here with us in the studio. This is a portable, as opposed to the standard, which was not meant to be moved. This one, as you can see, can fit in the case, and it's easy to lift up and move around, and you could go into the park and have your picnic and type a little sonnet or two on it just as easily as at home. And it's from the 40s, and I really like it. It looks good. I like the matte finish on it, and again, the symbol of the typewriter, inspiration for writing, and also a writing machine. What more could you ask for? And you on a Commodore, and you typed on a Royal as well, although yours was the standard, right?
Right, mine was the big heavy one.
Right.
My husband bought it for my birthday. It was heavy.
Yeah, I think we featured that in another episode, so viewers can find that if they're looking for it. Well, thank you so much for being on. And once
This was
again,
wonderful. Thank you.
Kelly McClymer, the author of the Evertwix series, Once Upon a Wedding series, and the Secret Shopper Mom series, talking to us about how to get published. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And as always, thank you for watching. Keep on typing, and don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe.